Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode on sustainability. Even though in Malaysia from tomorrow we have lockdowns, but Malaysian government, Singapore government, even though others, corporation and local ecosystem, they are mostly focused on this sustainability. Most important thing is that I always say that World Talent Economy Forums, we are collaborating with governments, universities and corporations. Already different universities for their DBA programs and PhD program, they're utilizing our content in North America, in Europe, as well as in Asia. And they're utilizing our content, they're utilizing all of our resources in their excellence centers. I want to share this good news from one of the university from California. They already shared the information uh, that they are utilizing. They're utilizing all of their things, and this is California Miramar universities. And yes, so I'm just sharing that all of our content actually distribute with them. This is the California Miramar University. They have a excellence centers, center for excellence, and they are working on resilience developments and sustainability. And yes, this is our contents, corporate resilience in post-COVID-19 area. Beside that, all of our content actually utilizing in USA, in Europe, in France, Malaysia, Singapore, China, Japan, Bangladesh, India, many universities, they are now utilizing our content. So I'm sure those who contributing with the World Talent Economy Forum, intellectually, they become famous in intellectual community and different university. And our target to reach 100 million people, how we getting feedback from the corporation and university as well as from the government. Soon we will list this target. We have many university, those who are actually utilizing our content and everything. So hopefully it will be very much exciting, and I'm sure after these sessions we are doing a lot of research work as well as different kind of corporate strategy related works. So from our speakers, from our audience, those who want to interest to join with us, we are very much open for that, because we are getting huge task for corporate resilience as well as for the sustainability. I want to start with Mr. Ben Banerjee. He is part of think tank, and he's doing a lot of work in Europe, specifically on sustainability's impact investments. So how are you today? What do you want to introduce with our audience?
Thanks, guys. Like you mentioned, I've been in this field of impact investment more than 25 years. So I have been there since the very beginning, when we started with renewable energy, agriculture, then we went to microfinancing, and today it has exploded everywhere. I mean, this year we already crossed 800 billion. So it has been a very, very interesting journey. And our main purpose is to spread the awareness and be the platform, since we have the knowledge and the resources and the expertise to all over the world. Basically, we started from Netherlands, Germany, now Switzerland, and so most of Europe. And as many of analysts must be knowing, that the whole idea of impact investment, to my knowledge, started from United States. It blew over from US to UK and then to Netherlands and spread all over. So that is basically our finance and our ideas. And we also have been supporting a lot of financial institutions. We have our own financial institutions, but we also support like the Norwegian Sovereign Fund and a lot of other major institutions on their impact investments. So, and in case any of you who don't know what is impact investment, that is investment like any other investment, but which is doing something good for the environment and or for the society. And I'm also in the board. So my main focus is mainly on the climate change and agriculture. I'm also on the board of Climate Leadership Coalition, which is the biggest business group in Europe on this topic. And we have been writing policy on the Green Deal and things like that. What I wanted to speak to your audience about is that after I've been asked by many people, and finally we decided to start a program that will be 1.5 hours program every Friday, 3 o'clock Swiss time. It's Central European time. And what we intend to do is bring businesses and investors, thought leaders, and political leaders who are in this field of climate change and impact investment and interview them and try to spread their knowledge and also influence them to act, because I think I sincerely believe we now have the time. We have to act. It's getting too late.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's all I want.
Mm.
Anybody who
Yes.
wants to join can is most invite this question.
Thank you, sir. I just want to share a few more content actually from even another think tank. They're already communicating with me, as well as they're utilizing our contents for their different kind of politicals and other things they are developing right now. So, World Talent Economy Forums, I believe that we are in right tracks. We are introducing our content worldwide, and we are getting huge response from our youth community, from different kind of organizations. At least 10 different university they are communicating with me and communicating with my teams, that for their PhD programs as well as for their BBA program, they will utilize our content. So I request all of our speakers, those who want to connect with this kind of university, they can get a very good platform from World Talent Economy Forum. We have our new guest. We have Mr. Gary, we have Mr. Eric, as well as we have Mr. Lawrence. So I want to start with Mr. Lawrence. Can you please introduce yourself and introduce your project?
Hello, my name is Ron Cousineau. I'm from Montreal, Canada. I'm the founder of Climate Change Guide. And basically, the site has been operating since 2011. And basically, we share a lot of general information about climate change. To give one example, one of my more recent articles on my website is a review of the film Merchants of Doubt. And I think it's an important topic that people don't discuss enough. Basically, there's a lot of climate change information on the internet. There's also a lot of climate change disinformation on across many different media, such as television stations. Now, the documentary Merchants of Doubt basically explains uh, how many companies, such as the tobacco company or the oil company, they spread doubt about the dangers of their product in order to make more and more profits. So basically, in the case of the cigarette companies, in the 1950s, the tobacco companies were aware that their cigarettes were causing cancer. In the 60s, they were aware that smoking causes heart disease. And in the 60s, they knew that nicotine was addictive. However, for several decades, so again in the 50s and 60s, they knew that their product was dangerous. But even in the 90s, under oath, the leaders of tobacco companies were saying that their product was not addictive. So they've been lying about their product for decades, and millions of people died from cigarette companies like the United States and across the world. Now, the tobacco industry is one of the first companies to use these tactics, but many companies, such as the oil and coal companies, are doing the same thing now to spread disinformation about climate change. So it's not like they just spend a few bucks on this. They spend hundreds of millions, maybe even $1 billion on climate change disinformation as well as lobbying. So I think that in order for us to have a more sustainable world, we need to combat climate change disinformation. So right now, it's illegal for a tobacco industry to say that their cigarettes don't cause cancer, but oil and coal company are able to spread disinformation about climate change, which will affect the lives of billions of people in the future. And I think that we need to not only should we spread awareness about climate change, but we also need to fight against disinformation. One of the ways is to create new laws to punish oil and coal companies from spreading disinformation. And I think this is a very important issue because there's a lot of people, for instance, in the United States, there's a lot of people who believe that climate change is a hoax, and this has very serious impacts because they, if millions of people believe that climate change is a hoax, or they believe it's not a big deal, then they will vote for politicians who don't take climate change seriously, and this has a very serious impact on our world. So the United States, under the Trump administration, wanted to leave the Paris Climate Agreement, but now, thankfully, the Biden administration wants to go back into the Paris Climate Agreement. But the reality is that there's still a lot of politicians in the Senate and in Congress, United States, that don't take climate seriously, and this is due probably to the disinformation campaign. So we have to do more. Environment has to do more to combat this.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gary, can you please introduce yourself and introduce your projects and work? I know you are very experienced in climate change. Mr. Gary.
Good morning. Thank you for the well. Good morning from me. Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Hopefully. Yes.
Yes.
I hope you hear me. Okay. Great. So for me, it's good morning. I'm in Panama here. I know that people are all over the world. I am the founder and director of environmental nonprofit Planet Rehab. I started in 2002 because I was panicked about the direction that our environment was heading in. For 17 years, we worked in California doing everything that we could think of, from plant-based food festivals to beach cleanups to original echo musicals, anything that we could conceive of to try to touch people's hearts to get them to pay attention to what was happening in the environment. When we learned that it had gotten to the point where humans had sped up the natural extinction rate by 10,000%, which means that every day over 200 species are going extinct, we decided to call it quits in Los Angeles, and we moved to a rainforest, which also turned out to be a chocolate farm in Bocas del Toro, Panama, where we are pursuing our reforestation efforts. Right now, our biggest project is involving an extremely endangered tree, which really, from our research, is most likely the most important tree in Central and South American rainforest, which is called the almendro tree. It is so beloved of the construction industry that it has been wiped out almost entirely from Central and South America. And this particular tree is basically the father of the rainforest. One tree can host over 1,000 organisms, and it grows 150 feet tall, lives for hundreds of years. So we're very excited that since we started our Just One Tree initiative, we have already been able to plant over 340 endangered almendro trees in 5 islands and 3 areas on the mainland. So our organization is Planet Rehab, and we are at planetrehab.org for anyone that would like to find out more about us. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. We have our another new guest, Mr. Eric. Can you please introduce yourself and introduce your project?
Yeah, greetings everybody. My name's Eric Lewis, and right now I'm coming to you from Roanoke, Virginia, in my friend's beautiful straw bale house. And I have been into permaculture and plants since 2010, and my most recent project is Plant Path. It's a small nursery in Knoxville, Maryland, and we're aiming to plant hundreds of thousands of trees over the next 10 years. And my main passion is transitioning our food system from annual petrochemical intensive monocrop agriculture of soy, corn, and wheat, and shift us over into long-lived perennial tree crops with a special focus on pecans, chestnuts, and hazelnuts, as those are going to be the most productive plant species with the widest application in United States farmland. So really, I want to take over the 300 million acres of commodity crops with tree crops. So that's the main project that I'm focused on now. And of course, doing lots of teaching and lots of outreach as much as I possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you. We have our friends, Mr. James Id. Mr. James, can you please share your concept about the climate change? And you have a very good relations with Africa, your foundation working in Africa. What's going on there? How do you want to introduce your points about climate change and sustainability?
Thank you, Sharif, for the opportunity. and I apologize for the background, but I just want everyone to know that I intend not to be just another brick in the wall. And I think that what I'm trying to accomplish specifically through my foundation is to build communities. And we want to build communities because I think it starts with your individual. It starts with how you live your life. And then it starts with how you can impact your community, build your community to be sustainable. What we're doing in Uganda, for example, is we're trying to have land that can be farmed sustainably. We can, including water purification systems. And there are things that we want to accomplish that seemed like they were impossible not too many years ago. And we're seeing them take place. We're seeing them, they are manifesting themselves in reality now. And I want to encourage people, like, I just have to tip my hat to you, Sharif, for all of it you're doing, but you're an example to others because you do not have, you don't have to be another Sharif, but you as an individual can do what Sharif is doing, something like it. You can connect other people. You can build a community. You can reach out to your community and make it sustainable. You can do it yourself. I have a Tesla, and I have before I bought solar panels before I talked to Alex, which he would have discouraged me. But there are ways that you can change your own life to make it more sustainable, and there are ways for you to impact your community to make it more sustainable, and it grows from there. And I really want to second the politicians that we have people that are falling for the disinformation, and they're electing politicians. One of them held a snowball in the floors of Congress and said, see, there can't be climate change, global warming, there's a snowball. So this kind of manifest dishonesty is being believed, and we have got to get the correct information out to people so that they can make their own individual choices for the best for themselves, their community, and for the globe. Thank you so much, Sharif.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have our friend, Mr. Alex. So how do you want to introduce the sustainability with our audience?
Good morning, everyone. So yeah, it's around 7:30 a.m. here. I'm again thankful we got so many intelligent people, so many experts, guests on this panel doing projects around the world. So projects, we need more projects like this, whether you're working on agricultural project, if you're working in technology, if you're trying to change personal lifestyle habits, ways that you purchase, things that you buy, how you vote with your money, education. We just need more people taking individual initiative in learning some of the things that will help collectively lower our carbon footprints or our individual carbon footprints. So all the people on this panel, we're doing things in our own way to try to encourage or support our shift towards global sustainability. So that's the goal. So we're trying to get towards global sustainability. We have to. We have to. There's too much to lose. There's too many innocent creatures, sentient beings, and the children born today that are depending on us to make the right decisions. So we're going to be using a lot of important keywords throughout this discussion. And I know that we have viewers from around the world, so I would recommend getting a notepad and paper and write down some of the keywords that you might hear us say, because there's sustainability is such a broad category, and then there's main sectors and main categories, and then a lot of subcategories, because it's just endless and how everything's interconnected. So if you hear us say specific keywords, I would definitely recommend searching and learning more about that, because again, education is one of the biggest solutions that we have towards solving all of these issues we're seeing around the world: ecological collapse, positive feedback loops with climate-related disasters and everything else. It would also help solve what Laurent mentioned, which is just disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, fake news, whatever you want to call it. Our society is out of balance, and over all of the centuries, we've spent too much time doing things that don't serve a purpose, buying things that we don't need, wasting our time on a variety of different hobbies and interests. But now we have to, it's so important that we have to redirect our energy and our attention towards what is sustainable. So there's different terms for sustainable. And then another term that I would love for people to do more research is just net zero. So we're starting to build a lot of net zero buildings, net zero communities and countries. So that's a really interesting keyword. So there are, I think, a few countries that have reached or are close to reaching net zero impact. And then there's a lot of sustainable building development projects that are net zero throughout Malaysia, Dubai, Singapore, and stuff. So there's some really exciting projects coming along when it comes to engineering and sustainable technologies. So a lot of cool stuff there. So when you think about sustainability, there's the environmental aspect, economic impact, and then the social impact. So there's you can break it down into different categories, and we're going to cover some of those in here. So I'm just going to read a brief approximation of the definition sustainability. So it's basically or sustainable development. So it's basically when it meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it's us meeting our own needs with the resources that we need and the lifestyle that we're trying to obtain and the quality of life we would all love to get to without jeopardizing the quality of life or potential quality of life of the future generations. So so that's just a brief definition. Another term that has to do with offsetting our potential progress towards sustainability is greenwashing. And we're going to continue to see a lot of greenwashing around the world where companies, corporations, even individuals will try to push a product onto you or an idea, and it's not actually sustainable. And then I have a lot of notes, and again, there's a lot of subjects, but another thing that we have to work towards, so we've caused so much damage on Earth, being sustainable, actually Annie mentioned this in one of the previous discussions. Sustainable is wonderful, but we're already seeing positive feedback loops around the world with some of the major systems of Earth in Earth's biosphere. We're seeing ecological collapses around the world. So we need to pass sustainability, and we need to think about regenerative, and that's what Eric is doing with regenerative agriculture. That's like planting new trees. I think Eric just harvested a huge yield of, was it turmeric, Eric? So just anytime you're I think it's 400 pounds or something, or some unbelievable huge number. So we need to continue to eat organic, eat healthy, do all these things to rebuild Earth's biosphere, because we have caused a lot of damage. That goes along with doing beach cleanups, doing everything that we can, because we have a lot of work to do in a short amount of time. So I'm going to post a graphic at some point, and it can come up. So it's, again, the circular economy. So that's important. So we do need to transition into a circular economy. So we just stop sending so much stuff to the landfills. And there's a lot of sectors that we need to work on. Of course, there's energy, transportation, issues throughout our society. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it back to the panel. Those are some things that I wanted to cover. And again, another great discussion with all of you.
Okay, thank you. We have our Professor Donald. Professor Donald, how do you want to introduce sustainability with our audience, and what the research work you want to share with us? Can you unmute
Your mic
yourself?
might be
I was
muted.
just doing it. I realized I was just looking for the button. Found it. Okay. Their sustainability, if you look at the UN, they look beyond environmental sustainability. They look for the whole idea of sustainable culture, which requires people to be able to grow enough food to eat. And so goals are education, women's rights, human rights, things like that are all part of sustainability. And I want to lead into that by saying, when I listen to Alex, I very much admire the kinds of things that he does. In fact, he's here because I suggested him. I found Alex and brought him here. And there is something that is in the back of my mind, though, which is that human beings mostly are
busy doing stuff. We can be critical of people for watching too much television or doing things that in some are in some ways not making them better people, improving them as human beings. However, if you look at what life is like for people, a lot of times people are doing things that make sense if you were them. And
Right.
I want it may seem off track, but I'm going to get right back to it, which is there's a cognitive neuroscientist at Columbia named Carl Hart, who wrote a wonderful book called High Price, where he talks about the war on drugs. And he did a lot of research inside of Columbia, where he found that people would actually quit. People that were totally strung on crack would quit if he said, hey, you can have a dose of crack or $100. And the people would take the $100 and they just quit. And he himself grew up in a situation where he was basically sold drugs himself. He grew up, he's black, and he grew up in a bad neighborhood, and he took and sold drugs. So what he discovered is that that doing that sometimes is adaptive, because if the person's situation is so horrible that they don't have any way out of it, medicating themselves is actually a reasonable thing to do. And the reason I'm making this point is that a lot of the things that we have, it's all well and good to say what people should do, but we don't understand the reality of their world, and what they're doing is perfectly reasonable and adaptive. And so I think approaches that acknowledge this economic aspect of humans, the idea that we're making rational choices for our own best interest, even though it may not appear that way to others, needs to be really looked at. And I think one of the examples of that is things like carbon taxes, because carbon taxes then make carbon so expensive that the rational thing to do is to use something else. And we're doing the opposite in the United States, where we're basically paying people to use carbon. We're subsidizing the oil industry. And it comes back to the idea of the snowball, Jim Inhofe. But other horrible people are like Ted Cruz, Louis Gohmert. These people are there for the purpose of making sure that we're deluded about the problems with carbon, that we continue to subsidize them. And again, they represent states where that's how people make their money. So we've really got to start looking at ways that we can address these things from a level where we change the economic incentives for the using these, doing basically quote bad things unquote. And that's what I'm going to say for now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir. I have a specific questions. As we are moving with this academic initiative, training and development on sustainability as well as fourth industrial revolutions. So how we can develop real academic courses for universities, as well as all of you are expert on sustainability, as well as how actually we can contribute through academic related activities and initiative. I want to start with Mr. Laurent. Yeah.
Well, like in the United States, for instance, there are some schools that teach about climate change in the elementary and high school, but I think there has to be a law in pretty much all countries to make kids learn about environment starting at a young age. So elementary school and high school, and of course university as well should have courses on climate change. Was that your question? Was that?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of people are not aware of climate change, starting from a young age, and then when they're adults, let's say they see Fox News or or one of those kind of media. Basically, they're being told that it's a hoax, or they're being told that it's not a big deal. But if we can get young people to learn about it, then it inoculates them, and then basically it prepares them for their future. So we need to spread awareness at all levels. We need to spread awareness for young people, young adults, and also older adults. So we need to spread awareness across the whole platform. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James.
Yeah, thank you, Sharif. I think that when I was in college, I took the first course in my college that was offered on environmental economics. It was like a new thing. Now I'm talking the mid '70s. I'm sorry to date myself, but this was unheard of 10 years prior to that. And there was a big push to get an environmental economics. There's an economic cost to destroying the environment. And so we wanted to educate college-age kids at this time. But as our last speaker mentioned, we could have a Sesame Street program on this now. We want to have these little kids exposed to the damage that has been done to the environment, and that they are now have a call to duty to repair it. If they grow up with that instilled in their value system, that the environment we are stewards of the environment, and it has been nearly destroyed. We must take care of it. So this can't start early enough. I mean, read a bedtime story to your kid that has something to do with environmental protection, environmental sustainability, something like that. These things were not thought of maybe 10, 20 years ago. They're thought of now, and we must act on them now. Turn the ideas into actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eric, so what your perception? How do you want to share your experience with us?
Well, I think that there's a lot that universities could offer, and a lot that they could bring to the table, especially in the realm, like my big passion is food production, because I've seen and come across a lot of research indicating that food production is where one of our largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions is, not only from the methane of the animal industry, which is very obvious, but also the methane release from the die-off of microbes that happens when we till the soil. And this is one of the most basic aspects of annual agriculture. And so I think getting more data on that, and more data on techniques that build soils, is a very important aspect. I also think data analysis on the improvement of ecosystems that occurs when we transition to tree crops is a major aspect where we could use some big data to come in. Another element within the sustainability movement that could use a lot of attention and research is developing systems for heating, passive forms of heating and cooling. And there's a lot of research in this regard within, kind of the subculture of like hippies and homesteaders and things like that. But we need to take these things mainstream, because when we look at the actual on the ground consumption of your average residential person who wants to do the right thing, they want to help the climate, they don't want to see the environment destroyed, but they don't have the time or bandwidth to make the right choices and invest the amount of time and energy that it takes to develop these systems. They need something that's plug and play, and the consumption is happening, at least on the level of electricity. We're seeing more than half of our electricity go to household heating and cooling, at least within the residential sector. Most of it gets lost. Most of the energy that we produce gets lost through transmission and distribution and conversion. So that brings up another excellent aspect that the universities could help us with, and that is on-site energy production. The closer that we can produce the energy to the point of consumption, the less losses that we're going to experience, and therefore the higher levels of efficiency. So I think that's just to name a few. I mean, we could go on and on with the kind of research that needs to happen and the kind of technologies that need to be developed and brought to the mainstream. And the reason I say that it's important for the universities to get behind this is because the small businesses who are willing to necessarily have the capital to do the research and development because they're so busy just surviving and trying to keep their business afloat. So that's a few points that I think universities could help us with.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gary. Can you hear me, Mr. Gary?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to be in a better place.
Thank you.
As far as university involvement, I think a lot of it has to do with our diets and helping people understand how crucial our diet is to our sustainability and our survival as a species. I feel like global warming gets a lot of attention, but I feel that very few people understand how crucial it is, the fact that we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction. The fact that we have sped up the extinction rate by 10,000%. And why is that? And mostly it has to do with the degradation of our forests. Here in the Amazon, 91% of the destruction of the Amazon is for the cattle industry. I think a lot of people, as was mentioned before, understand the dangers of the contributions of the cattle industry to global climate change, but infrequently is added into that the fact of the 1,000 fires a day that are started specifically to clear cut to grow crops for the cattle industry. So many things could be helped if you look at the extinction rates having to do with the Amazon rainforest, and once you start putting the pieces together and understanding why it's happening, if we just shift our diets to a plant-based diet, so much of regeneration is going to happen. So much opportunity to restore forests, to be healthier, to reduce the carbon footprint. So I think that that's an area where universities really could be key. Certainly there is a lot more plant-based, I suppose, plant-based dietitians nowadays. But I really think that people need to get this information about understanding why it's important to protect our rainforests and how our diet affects that.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Donalds. As you have a huge experience on academia and this kind of things, so how do you want to introduce the contribution through academia, specifically on sustainability?
I keep muting myself so because there's banging around in the house. But anyway, I just found an interesting article about how University of California, Santa Barbara has been working with Brazilians because one of the huge sources of deforestation in Brazil is soybeans and soy crop. So it's the whole thing about food is a little more nuanced. It isn't because they're growing animal products. It's because so many people are using soy products that they're destroying the Amazon at a rapid rate. So UC Santa Barbara worked together with people there and got people to create a moratorium on growing soy and saved about 18,000 kilometers. I'll put the link in the chat box here. So you can see it. But I go back to what I'm saying. There has to be some sort of incentive for people to do it. People can't sustain doing something that makes their life less good for them. And I mean, it's their own perceptions. We can't tell people how they're supposed to want to live their lives or what things they value. And it's going to be different. There's many, many cultures, even the United States, there's countless microcultures. And so things, when the government subsidizes solar, when the government subsidizes, and we find some sorts of ways to start doing the research, then there's ways to pay for the research. And without somebody being paid for it, or without being social status, it isn't really going to happen. I'd like to point out that Facebook has actually done amazing things with their server farms, where they use evaporation to cool them. And so they evaporate the water, collect the water, recycle the water, evaporate it again. And the places are so cold. Somebody I know that's been in one had once told me that they're freezing, and it takes very, very, very little power. It doesn't take any hydrofluorocarbons. It doesn't. It's possible to do these things. So research is taking place not just at universities, but we have to start trying to understand more about how people work and people behave. So things that universities are already doing are sociology, psychology, politics, political science. All of these kinds of things are the kinds of things that we can start doing to use to be able to identify where the propaganda from the oil companies and things like that is affecting us, and be able to effectively counter that propaganda, identify it, and develop policies that reduce that propaganda. I mean, just now in the United States, there's been this horrible disinformation, and they cut off Trump's Twitter account. They closed Parler. They banned him from Facebook and Instagram and everything else like that. And the silence it's almost deafening. It's so wonderful. It's like when I was in the forests of Finland. It's beautiful. So anyway, those are the things that are going to happen to really make a difference. There's got to be incentives.
Thank you. Mr. Alex, you are young, you are energetic, and you are contributing a lot through your projects. How do you want to add your experience in academia, and what will be the benefit if students, they develop different kind of projects? What will be the benefit for their knowledge as well as for their experience?
Yes. So the benefits, just, prosperity, living a good life, knowing that you did a good thing to help make the world a better place. That's why a lot of us are in this group, on this panel, and why a lot of people take the individual initiative to work on projects just to help make the world a better place, to help people, animals, or the environment. So a little bit about school and how funding can be redirected through education is just by taking some of those classes. And that's what I did, because if you have a low turnout in some of these college classes, then it's not going to get the same amount of funding that it needs the next year, or to continue providing that class to the general public or the people in that community. So I have 84 units at Cabrillo College. I'm really fortunate that I have a wonderful community college where I live here in Santa Cruz, California. It's called Cabrillo College. And out of those 84 units, I have directed a lot of my attention towards environmental issues and sustainability. So I have tried to support, kind of like voting with your money, by taking some of these college courses. Now the list is, I've taken renewable energy and resources, solar technology, green building, construction and design, edible plants and landscaping, which is under agriculture, plant propagation, which is under agriculture, environmental geology. I took meteorology. I took some environmental science course, but it was only for a couple weeks before I went and dropped out and worked on another environmental project. And then, but I did take anthropology, surviving the future. That was a really cool course. That course was preparing people for like climate change. I'm talking about the imminent global food shortages or widespread droughts or especially water scarcities around the world. So learning all this information was obviously very valuable because then I can turn around and educate others, but at the same time, it helped some of those classes. So as Gary was mentioning, when some of the first classes he took, I actually took renewable energy and resources in 2008 or 2009 from Joe Jordan, which is a retired NASA scientist that was also on this program. And because there was a low turnout, or the way people voted, they actually defunded that class for a year or two. And it was really frustrating because I'm thinking, like, we're in a climate emergency. We need this information. Everyone needs this information. Like, what are you doing? Like, and they defunded it. It was just, this made me sick to my stomach because I knew the importance of the class Joe was providing, and there was no other class like it. I mean, it was renewable energy and resources, and that's such a huge subject. So, education, how important that is, taking classes, funding. I know when I go and vote at the polling stations, usually there's options. Do you want to allocate this X number of taxpayer dollars or whatever to funding these schools and these education programs? So I try that, and then just getting involved. I don't know, find ways to get involved with your community college or your local university. Again, I am very fortunate that I live in Santa Cruz, where they have UCSC. It's an amazing university. They're doing a lot of research projects around the world. There are a lot of courses related to ecological systems, and just they have a huge garden, and they're just doing a lot of really cool stuff. Another wonderful school that, if you are interested in taking a career in anything sustainable, anything related to climate change or agriculture, I'd also recommend studying more or learning or researching or checking out the website of UC Davis. They're doing a lot of amazing stuff, and they have been on the forefront of all of these new technologies, planting methods. They have an amazing college campus. So as Eric was mentioning, and just with what he's working on, so yeah, diet, and Gary also mentioned diet. So diet is an extremely important. It's a way that we can all vote with our money every single day. And if you can't afford to eat organic all the time, even once in a while is really important. There is some, like greenwashing versions of organic, but going to the farmer's market, even growing your own food could be organic. So eating organic is allowing us to transition away from using synthetic fossil fuel derived chemicals and herbicides and rodenticides, all these things that are like polluting the waterways and causing ecosystem disruptions. So that's really important. It's also doing something horrible around the world, which is killing all the mycorrhiza and all the beneficial bacteria in all the soils. So it's killing the soil, and the soil is not as working as well or as effective as it could with carbon sequestration to help us solve climate change. So we have mastermind systematically capturing all of these resources and growing all food in the cheapest, most convenient way. So we have to continue to compost, reintroduce organic matter back into the soil, plant more trees, and that's another huge subject. So I'm going to go ahead and pass my time back to some other people on the
Thank
panel.
you, Mr. Gary. As you have a very good experience on project development, specifically you do more focus on climate change and sustainability, which is very much important. So, what your advice when a youth community like from Asia Pacific, they want to develop a projects, and they want to develop projects on climate change as well as they want to more focus on sustainability? What type of research they need to do, how they can prepare themselves for developing a projects, what things they need to do for their projects. Mr. Gary. Mr.
I'm
Gary,
sorry,
can you
just
hear
to
me?
sure you're asking me the best types of courses for people to
Yes.
take. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Basically,
No?
my
Yes?
questions to yes,
Can you hear me?
yes, I hear you. Yeah. Yes, my questions to you: how a youth community can develop a climate
Okay.
change project.
Okay. Well, first of all, look at Greta Thunberg. she is what now, 17 years old, 18 years old. She started when she was 15. People respond to youth. This is absolutely huge. One of the things that I think that is crucial is that we look at developing change now. We don't have time. We don't have time, for instance, to think of someone going through an 8-year master's program. Things need to
Right.
change now. In our organization, Planet Rehab, we are youth driven. We have a lot of high school and college people involved. So I would say that it's a two-tiered or a two-pronged solution. Number one, yes, take every class that you can on sustainability, on diet, on conservation. But number two, if you are youth, be part of the solution. Join an organization. Go out and plant trees. Go out and do whatever you can, because people respond. Adults, if you look at what one little girl, Greta Thunberg, was able to accomplish in her young life of being the youth leader of our entire planet now, just because she was willing to go and start striking on Fridays. So I think that instead of just concentrating on what courses people can take, obviously that's crucial, but it's absolutely crucial that everyone get involved, because we don't have a lot of time. I mean, I don't know how else to tell you this, but we are moving way too fast in the wrong direction. Alex and some of the other speakers had mentioned feedback loops that are happening. If you look at what's been happening climatically, in August, it hit 100 degrees in the Arctic Circle. On August 16th, it hit 130 degrees in the Mojave Desert in California. That is the hottest temperature that has ever been recorded on Earth. We do not have time. So anyone that is involved, especially from a youth perspective, yeah, get educated, but get involved now. Use your voice to make change now.
Thank you, Mr. Laurent. How do you want to add this point specifically? When a students they develop project and they focus on sustainability as well as climate change, how they can develop a project and what the things they need to focus for developing a specific projects.
Do you mean academic projects, or do you mean?
Actually, even though right now in academia, they also develop different startup. Example, in University of Malaya in Malaysia, they have a startup. Every university has a startup, and they also develop different kind of products. Even it's from schools, from university. University does not mean right now only just theory and class and exam. They also change their pattern. Then now they more focus on uh, projects and startup and this kind of things. Yeah.
Well, I think. Well, I remember in September 2019, there was a big student march in my city, Montreal, Canada. I think about 500,000 people showed up at the march, and that was one of the biggest marches in my city in history. And from what I remember, there were a lot of student groups that organized the march. So it's not like just 500,000 people randomly showed up. It was people who were working on it for months or even years to organize this event. Many different groups from many different schools. So that was one of the biggest events that took place. So that's one way that students could help out by organizing big marches, big protests. But I think you could also use social media to spread awareness. That's another big one. There's many different venues to spread awareness in social media. But once again, I think that organizing a big march is one of the biggest things. Also, I just want to point out there were two people who mentioned Senator Inhofe. Basically, I have an article on my website called Senator Snowball, which is like a nickname people gave to him. And basically, for those of you who don't know, James Inhofe is a guy who famously held on a snowball in the Senate and basically used it as what he called evidence that global warming is a hoax. Now this man, James Inhofe, in 2012, he actually wrote a book called "The Greatest Hoax: How the Global Warming Conspiracy Threatens Your Future." So this guy, he actually wrote a book that spread denial, and he received over $2 million from the fossil fuel industry. So that's another big problem we have in the United States. Well, I'm from Canada, but in the United States, one problem that they have is that there's like unlimited funding of politicians. In Canada, we're more strict with how we can donate. We have like a limit. But in the United States, fossil fuel company could just give like $1 million, $2 million, and so on. And I think if you want to help fight climate change, we have to change we have to change how government works in the United States. Al Gore, I think on many occasions, Al Gore said we have not only a climate crisis, we have a democracy crisis. And basically what he's mentioned is that in the United States, there's, well, in my opinion anyways, there should be more regulations to how much people can donate, especially oil companies and so on. They shouldn't be able to give like millions of dollars. I think that's like a very serious issue. And it's not just a serious issue that affects the United States, it affects the whole world. So basically, in summary, in order to fight the climate crisis, we need to fight the democracy crisis. Because even if it's good to spread awareness and to do our own actions, if there's like a huge amount of money being given to people to spread denial about climate change, it's going to be extremely difficult to actually take action. So we have to face that.
Thank you. Mr. Eric.
Yeah, I think that there is a ton that, not just kids in the universities, but university-age people all over the world can be doing. We really need to step up our game big time. As James was saying, we're out of time. And as we all know, like the time is now for us to make real changes. And we need to make sustainable living, and not just sustainable living, we need to go beyond that because we've already done so much damage. We need to be thinking in terms of regenerative living so that we can turn things around. And I think one of the first things, of course, in my book is food production, but we need to be able to address all of the basic needs and desires that people have through sustainable life ways. And one of the prime examples of it out in the Southwest desert here in the United States is Earthship Biotecture. There's also Cal Earth down in Southern California, where they're building sustainable homes that are essentially self-heating and cooling. The primary building material is earth. And, these are the kinds of changes that we need to make. We need to take this desire for eco-villages away from just being this fringe subculture kind of a thing, and we need to make it the most popular way of living on the planet very, very rapidly. So there's a lot of development that needs to happen. Students could be looking into how to finance large-scale regenerative eco-communities, because when we look at, I put a little link in there, I don't know if everybody can see it, but it breaks down the energy flows of the United States in 2011. And when we look at that, we can see that the vast majority of energy consumption is happening in the industrial sectors and in the commercial sectors and in the transportation sectors. So if we can create communities where all of the essential needs are met within a small subdivision of, 1 to 100 to as many as maybe 10,000 houses, and have everything that a human being needs to thrive within walking distance or at most a short bike ride away from home, we can eliminate the vast majority of the necessity for these sectors, production and consumption and all of these things, and start to bring people back into community and back into right relationship with each other. You look at how much of the consumption is going on just because people are in a state of depression, because they don't know what to do with their lives. They don't have any sense of community. They feel destructive and consumptive. And so the more that we can start to create incubation chambers where human beings grow up barefoot, connected to the earth, in close community, directly playing a role in their food production, processing, distribution, all of these things. This is empowering to people, and it's empowering in a way that disempowers and negates the current necessity for all of this reckless consumption and global industry that's going on, while ensuring that everybody still has hot water, has a nice warm space to sleep when it's cold and wet, and good food and all of these things. So I think that that's one step that youth can really be taking to make a huge difference. And by the way, make a lot of money in the process for those who are interested in the economic aspects of it.
Thank you, Professor Donald.
You're muted, Donald.
Right now, cities already are the lowest footprint for individuals because they can have public transportation. I have limited vision and I can't drive. And I live in a rural community called Santa Cruz. It's got absolutely horrible public transportation. It's basically useless. Like, for instance, I live about a mile from downtown, and because there's so few people that can take it, because the density is so low, that it's a 20-minute walk. Well, actually, it was 2 miles, so it's a 40-minute walk. And if I take the bus, it takes longer for me to get to town than it does to walk. So I just walk. But just think of the amount of time that it takes me. If I want to just go to the grocery store and back, it takes me, and just the walking portion of it takes me 45 minutes. So I really strongly disagree with the idea that small villages and small areas like that are going to work. I grew up in a rural place, and I can't even stand rural places. I mean, you just get, if you don't get along with the people, or the people are stupid, how are you going to find smart people in a rural place? I mean, it's only a teeny percentage of people are actually smart. So people right now, there's been research that's done that most innovation takes place in cities because of the intersection of different people and different ideas and different ways of making things happen. So I don't really think the idea of eco villages is realistic. But the one thing that a lot of people said here that I really agree with is that we've got to find ways of making these into businesses so people can do things, because like right now everything's changing. A lot of jobs are becoming routine jobs are being taken over by artificial intelligence and various kinds of robotics and things like that. And the fear is, well, people are going to be out of work. But that's happened throughout history. There's been technology changes. There's been huge fears that people are going to be out of work. But really what happens is entrepreneurs figure out new ways of actually doing things. However, Mr. Snowball and so on are creating disincentives for people to do the kinds of things that we need to do to be able to start making a difference. And it's all well and good for each of us to individually try and do the best we can. I mean, sometimes it's a huge barrier, like me walking. I mean, hardly anybody would do that. And in fact, they don't. The town is designed in a way that's extremely anti-pedestrian. and the way the people drive and the way they ride their bicycles and everything. It's like pedestrians or dog doo-doo. They're not encouraged in the town I live in at all, though the people in the town love to brag about how environmental they are. But back to what I'm saying, we're faced now, it's too late. So we're faced with issues like the people of Bangladesh are living in a floodplain that as sea level rises and more monsoons move more slowly and there's more rain and all those kinds of things, people are going to have to move. That's what happened in Syria. A lot of people, there was a huge drought. People had to move to the cities. It caused such disruption that it created the Syrian civil war, which is horrible. And we're going to see more and more and more of that. So for individual people, the idea of being academic or has some use, because we do need people to be able to start dealing with the larger scale issues that we're going to be seeing. But as far as entrepreneurs, every one of these problems needs to get solved. And so it's a place where people can start businesses. And then we need to get into the mechanics of how do you start a business? What does it mean to start a business? What are the steps that you have to take? How do you start a business? Entrepreneurship can be tough. And that's something that I think we need to focus on more than almost anything. So there.
Thank you.
That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Mr. Jim, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Mr. Jim.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to encourage people to take notes. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm running out of space. I'm really happy to be part of this conversation. The passion that's coming across is if I was capable of shame, I'd feel it, because I don't know if I'm doing enough. But I really want to piggyback on a couple and expand on a couple of things that I've heard. One was Professor Donald was talking about people having different situations in their life, and their rational decisions can be different. And this is especially true in our inner cities, when people, the only way they can afford to eat, to get the calories they need, is to go to a fast food restaurant. There's no farmer's market that they can walk to. And so these realities do exist, where people have limited choices and they can't eat healthily, and they can't do the things that we want them to do, that they would want to do if they had the opportunity. Even when I was talking about myself, I have a Tesla, I have solar panels. Well, I was thinking, people are probably out there thinking, oh, I wish I could afford a Tesla. I wish I had a home that I could put solar panels on. So everybody is in a different situation. But what you want to do is do what you can in your situation. And I do think that we do live, I love the democracy crisis. We barely held on to the republic by the skin of our teeth. And so this is a crisis also. So there are political problems. There are all these, we call Senator Snowball, for example, this disinformation. Well, these people have been elected for a long time. I can remember, and I'm going to date myself again, which brings me back to high school, but I will be talking about the 60s, when we were pouring PCBs into our rivers, where we were dumping sludge and causing cancer to the people that were living downstream, destroying the foliage that was living downstream. And we were doing this because we wanted jobs. And it wasn't until a river caught fire. And I know, basic chemistry, water boils, it doesn't burn. And when our rivers caught fire, people paid attention. And so we're waiting for this cataclysmic something or other to happen before people pay attention. Well, the sea level rise is not causing people to pay attention. The incredible hurricanes, monsoons, these types of things are causing some to pay attention, but not enough. We keep electing people to positions of power, making policy decisions based on information that no longer serves. So we must fight the disinformation. We must change our democracy. We must get awakened to what is happening to the globe. And I wanted to talk about a couple other things, but I see that you want to go to another subject, Sharif.
Okay. No, thank you, sir. Mr. Alex, How do you want to introduce this point?
Yes, as Donald was mentioning earlier, and about how to convince people, and as far as cultural relativism, and they're living in their own bubble or their own life, they have access to the information they have, and then we can't really tell them what to do, but what we're trying to do is educate them on the consequences, because the consequences are catastrophic. The consequences are widespread suffering and a lot of death. So as Gary mentioned, we're in the sixth mass extinction. It's sad and it's horrible, and we're all frantically doing everything that we can as fast as we can to try to make a difference and hopefully avoid it. But it's pretty unavoidable unless we all work together and all do as much as we can as fast as we can. I think also like Gary mentioned. So I think James might have mentioned, but yeah, that's one of the reasons, or someone on this panel, that's one of the reasons I dropped out of school. I took as many courses as I could, and then I just stopped going to school. I could have multiple degrees if I wanted, if I just would have taken a couple more classes, but I realized there's just too much work to do. We got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time. So everything that we're doing now, all the resources that we're using, all the energy that we're using, anytime we do these types of projects, it is taking one step back to take two steps forward. That's just how it is. So there is energy and resources going into all of the things that we're talking about, but it is what we have to do to try to survive our species. So as Donald mentioned, all of these conversations are solutions. We have the solutions. We have the knowledge. We have the technology. We do have a lot of misinformation slowing us down, and that's where politics comes in, so we can get the finances directed appropriately. So I'm going to go back to the question a few minutes ago that Sharif asked regarding projects, because I've worked on a lot of projects over the years. So what I would do if I was doing a project with people in my community, first I would think, do I want to do a project with other people, or are they just going to slow me down? Should I just do a project by myself and move forward faster, or do I want to involve other people? Are those people going to follow through, or are they going to just get in my way? So I would first start off by making a mind map. Mind maps are really, or even a list of things to do, but mind maps shows you the resources you have, the money, what you need to buy, what your goals are, your objectives, a contact list of people, or just mind maps are really cool if you're trying to start a business plan, a new project, a new idea. You could use them for a wide range of things to just help improve your life. I would go on Google right now and I'd search mind map and click on images and look at all the cool things you could do with mind maps. It could even be how to organize your time throughout your day. So another resource that I really like, so there's only so much time that we have in this discussion, and there's so much knowledge to cover. So take the individual initiative and do some of the research on your own. I would definitely recommend searching WikiHow. WikiHow pages were put together by experts or professionals around the world that wanted to make it very professional, informative, knowledgeable, and correct. So you can search all these subjects and learn how to do things. So you can search wiki how to recycle in Google, and it'll show you like how to recycle. And there's bullet points and there's a little illustrations, easy to understand. So you learn how to recycle. Wiki how to plant a tree. Wiki how to ride a bike. You could type in wiki how to catch the bus, even though you would think, how could people not know how to ride the bus? Some people don't, and it's different depending on where you live around the world. You could type in wiki how to organize a cleanup. And that's really cool, because then you can learn how to get sponsors, how to get people, volunteers. Of course, the pandemic slowed us down. But wiki how to start a nonprofit. All of these are solutions. And to help get organized, start a team, get resources, get money together, and whatever project you're going to work on. So I will mention that there's a lot of ways to reach people. And I've done a lot of these things over the last few years. Like Gary said, there's just not enough time. So Laurent mentioned social media. Social media is wonderful. You can reach a lot of people, but there's so much more stuff than that. So there's conversations, just having conversations with people on the street, one-on-one, or large groups of people. Public speaking is a larger group of people standing on a platform, contacting a school, organizing people, having an event, a seminar, or a discussion similar to this. Text messages, if you're desperate enough, you could send out a whole bunch of text messages, phone calls, emails. There's Facebook posts, Facebook groups, Facebook messages. You can go through and you can record YouTube videos, upload them to YouTube. Other forms of social media, business cards that can have that information, flyers. I have stickers that I've now been passing out that say climate emergency that are made from paper, all of that, bumper stickers. You could have a t-shirt that helps raise awareness of this. You can have a hat. I actually stamp all of my money with climate emergency. So every time I get money, just to help raise awareness, I have a stamp, and then I stamp this climate emergency on it because we are in a climate emergency. So every time I spend money, it has that. So you could have a megaphone like Greta Thunberg, or be with large groups of people, community TV. You can do a newspaper ad. There's you can raise awareness through music, through art, through sidewalk chalk is a huge form of activism that I've used. There's movies, signs, banners, magazines, vlogs, books, websites, tabling, projectors, yard signs. There's so many ways to reach. So I continue to try to be an activist, and this was shown in one of the other broadcasts, but I actually have climate emergency tattooed on my arm. So every time I'm in the store, anytime I'm anywhere. So we are in a climate emergency, and we have a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. As far as Earth ships, I love Earth ships to a certain point, but I think with the mega droughts and global heat waves that will happen in some of those areas, like what we saw in the Middle East, I'm a bigger supporter of tiny homes that could be moved from one point to another. I think tiny homes are a much better solution than Earth ships, and I love Earth
Thank
ships,
you,
but
thank you, thank
yeah,
you.
bigger solution.
Thank you, Mr. Alex. Basically, I think we missed some point from Mr. James. I want to give him point, and one specific things like when we, I think Professor Donald's also give me the answer. When we think about awareness, this is okay. Awareness, we can do different kind of things, but when we think that we will educated people, is it the process that in different kind of website and social media and everywhere we create something, it educate peoples, or it creates sometimes, yes, awareness is okay, that everywhere that we can create awareness, we can give them a image that okay, you have to do it, you have to do it, and you have to do it. But when we think about education, let's say example, we have to educate peoples. It's my observation, we need a process. Even though now many people say education is not important, this and that and many more things, I want to share, it's a corporate experience. Like we have a huge corporations, they're working with us. When the employee lose their job, maximum those who do not have college degree or university degrees, they lose their job in the COVID-19 period. I swear this is the fact. Yes, they get jobs and something, but example, when they have to go from one level to another level, example, you can do a lot of micro initiative, but example, when you run a macro initiative, you run a bank, you run a corporation, you run a group of companies, uh, still in Asia Pacific, I'm sharing the experience, we need educated people. We need educated people. There is no choice. That's why like country like India, country like Bangladesh, country like Indonesia, even country like Malaysia, Malaysian policymaker, they learn a lot from Western world, from USA, from Europe, from Australia, and they come back and then they develop their ecosystem. You can find that they have a very good infrastructure, official environment, corporate culture. They basically, Mahathir bin Mohammed, he sent them, okay, learn from the Western worlds and come back and contribute for the nations. So if I do not know, sometimes it creates sometimes of misinformation to the youth. When we said, oh, education is nothing, we do not need educations. Actually, exceptional always not example. I know Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, they drop outs. But example, those who drop out, 100% people is not successful. So that's the culture I'm sharing. I respect American cultures. I respect your point of views. But example, as all of our content goes to academia, so example, definitely there are some process. And beside that, one specific point, even though I saw in Malaysia there are highly successful entrepreneurs. They have PhD, they have DBA, they finish their degree from MIT, finish their degree from Stanford's, and they're running big corporations. So I do not know. I want to get this answer from Professor Donalds as well as from the other panelists. Beside that, I request Mr. James, I think we missed something, but definitely in terms of creating awareness, I respect all of your point of view. It's acceptable. But when we think about academy and we need to develop someone, uh, I want to learn. I want to learn from our panelists. Even Mr. Alex, I want to learn from you. So Mr. James said, yes.
Thank you, Sharif. And yeah, I don't think anyone's trashing education or the value of it. But there is a certain time where people have to get into action, and it depends on the individual. But yeah, educate yourself. And my father always taught me, don't wait till you're taught, teach yourself. And my point that I wanted to make that I forgot to mention was that we do live in a capitalist society. And one of the things that we can wake capitalist people up with, we talked about the problems that people said we need jobs, even if we're causing cancer downstream. We've gotten over that mentality, but now we can turn the capitalist money-making motivation into something by investing in the companies that are doing sustainability. And I've learned something today to think not only of sustainability, but regenerative actions. And so there are plant-based companies that for example, my niece is going to graduate from the University of Santa Barbara, studying in marine biology. And when she went there, I started an investment fund for her, and I invested in these types of companies. And they weren't really popular in terms of the Wall Street Journal and that sort of thing, but she's going to get, when she graduates, a lot more money than I put into it, because these are good investments. Plant-based companies that are producing food on a massive scale that is replacing the traditional Big Mac. Sorry to mention a particular one, but there's so many of them that's the only access some people have to calories. And if they make them plant-based as an alternative to meat-based, these companies survive and thrive. So capitalists invest in these companies, and you will make money. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Professor Donalds. Oh, yes, Professor Donalds, and then Mr. Laurent, I will give you. Professor Donald.
Well, I wanted to mention a couple of things that James and others have said, which is the whole thing of what they call food deserts. And it's areas in places where it's very difficult for people to get food. Surprisingly, Whole Foods has been making whole food stores inside of food deserts. And lo and behold, even though it's far more expensive, they're thriving. They're doing absolutely wonderfully because people do understand it and they do want to do it. There's always the issue of logistics. I mean, how do we get stuff there? And we talked about that in an earlier panel, and not as much about the logistics. There have been studies that show that local agriculture, farmers markets, actually wind up using more fuel per calorie or per capita because of the trucks that basically don't have a very good plan about how they're going to get the things and deliver them, and they're usually petroleum based. So that's something. And just saying that's a problem. Okay, that's a problem. We don't have good logistics for being able to use local agriculture. That's a potential business. That's something that somebody who knows AI, knows a little bit about deep learning and AI could solve. I mean, and they could make money doing it. Because making money has a negative connotation among some people. But the reality of it is it's a kind of a measure of how much society appreciates what it is that you're doing. I mean, if people want it, then you've done something that's providing something for people. And whether it's providing something that is environmentally a problem or environmentally beneficial, regenerative even, it's still providing something that people want and people need. And so I really strongly agree with what Sharif is saying, is that we need to facilitate the ability for people to be able to understand how to do it. And you have to have knowledge. I mean, if you don't know AI, you can't very well make an AI solution. I mean, if you don't understand how businesses work, you can't very well start a business. I mean, education is absolutely critical. And the last thing I'm going to say about this, and the point that I'm going to try and make, is that governments are a way that we can act collectively to do things together. In the United States, there's been a huge anti-government industry, basically, and that's what allows the Republicans to thrive, is because they go in, they screw up the government, and they say, see how screwed up the government is? The politicians are horrible. Why don't you elect me, and I'll screw up the government even more? But people don't get the correlation. But if you look at the list of the countries that are the most successful environmentally, it's countries like Switzerland, Denmark, Finland, Norway. What are they doing? What are they doing differently than? I know, I've lived in Finland. I've taught at a university in Finland, and I'm pretty sure that they have a different underlying belief about what their government is and the importance of investing in their society and their culture. In the United States, I just looked it up. Over 40% of the people believe that the end of the world is coming in the very, very near future. And that, if you read Inhofe's book, which I did read, his basic argument is that the reason there's no global warming is because God wouldn't let it happen, and that the whole idea is completely ridiculous because it says in the Bible that there's not going to be any floods anymore, and therefore sea level can't rise and floods. I mean, that's what his book says. And I don't know how to address that, because I'm not anti-religion, because there's senses of community, lots of people work together and do actually wonderful and great things. And I think there's wonderful qualities to all religions. But somehow we need to have a perspective that change the perspective, and that's something we have to do collectively. And I think the education that I've gotten in sociology has totally changed my perspective on how things need to be. And in Europe and Finland, they actually hire sociologists at companies. And so the people who run companies need to start understanding this too. So there's got to be education across the board.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Laurent. Yes, I think you want to add something.
I think with Donald, before he mentioned Syria, I think, and basically, for a couple of years before the Syrian civil war, there was this unprecedented drought. I think it lasted about 4 years, and it was one of the worst droughts they've ever seen. And that led 1.5 million people to move into Syria, into the cities. And before that, due to the Iraq war, there was another million people who moved into the cities. So this caused a lot of tension, and that was one of the main factors for the civil war, which is still happening. So basically, climate change will cause many different refugees around the world. So on my website, I have like an article about environmental refugees, and basically, in one of the worst case scenarios, there's an article from CNN says that there could be 3.5 billion possible environmental refugees by 2070. And then there's another source, The Guardian, which basically says there could be 2 billion refugees by 2100. So there's different ranges, but basically there's going to be a huge amount of refugees due to climate change. And basically, when there's like hundreds of millions of refugees, this will cause a lot of tension, and this could lead to many different civil wars or wars between countries. Also, climate change will cause more scarcity in terms of food and water. which will cause wars for natural resources. So basically, a lot of people will say that climate change is a national security issue because of the fact that it could cause wars and civil wars. So it's very important that people know about that. Also, I just want to point out, I'm a member of Climate Reality, and I strongly recommend this organization to people who are interested in climate change. Basically, Climate Reality offers a free training to people, and then people could do acts of leadership because of that training. So they could do presentations using slides provided by Climate Reality, uh, or various other forms of activism. So I've been a member of Climate Reality since 2013, but I've been active a lot since 2020. So I've given many presentations about climate reality. Many presentations about climate change via Climate Reality. And for those of you who are watching, you could go to Climate Reality's official website, and you could go to one of their trainings. They had two global trainings last summer. They're probably gonna have it this summer as well. So if people want to do more activism, then I highly recommend Climate Reality. Also, people mention meat consumption, and I'm just going to read something from my website quickly. Basically, I highly recommend companies such as Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, which basically create meat from, well, they create like an alternative to meat from plants. And basically, these alternatives require 99% less water, 95% less land, and emits 90% fewer dangerous emissions than regular meat from beef. So I strongly recommend people to eat meat from Beyond Meat or Impossible Foods, which are once again meat alternatives from plants. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. There are some specific questions from audience. I want to take few questions from audience. I think it will be more interesting. Mr. Eric, I want to take this question from audience that is there any difference between protecting the environment and preserving the environment? It's from Mr. Tawhid Ahmed.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a question of your level of intensity, really, around it. I think of environmental protectors being ones like my friends who are willing to go sit in trees in areas where pipelines are going to be brought through, the kind of people who are willing to monkey wrench and handcuff themselves to land clearing things. And, you know, my friends down in Florida who are actively fighting against mosaic mining. For those of you who aren't tuned into phosphate mining, that is a major blind spot for a lot of people. And is a major source of habitat loss and water poisoning. You know, we could go on and on for days of all the environmental atrocities that require us to protect the environment. Preservation of the environment, I think of as more of like a sweet kind of kindness where we're aiming to help to propagate native plant species that might be under threat of extinction, or you know, just making more conscious choices when we're consuming things. That's what I think of as preserving the environment versus protecting the environment. One is standing up and being willing to fight against these atrocities, and the other is taking actions to either mitigate our negative impact or take steps to have a more positive impact on the environment.
Thank you. Mr. Alex, my friend, you have a specific questions from audience. Mr. Bappi, what area of knowledge will be involved in shaping sustainable ecological economic development in the 21st century? From Mr. Bappi Mahmood.
What modes we're gonna transport or ship sustainable?
What areas of knowledge will be involved in shaping sustainable ecological economic developments? in 21st
That's a
century?
complicated. I'm not sure if I could answer that question. Kind of complicated. We did. If did we cover a lot of these subjects on the supply chain innovations? Is that when it comes to shipping? I'm not sure if I could answer that question. I don't. I'd have to read it instead of hear it. But I guess before it's too late, I'll go back and look at the question. But I did want to mention as far as the classes. So school, I just want to mention my school and education. So I just felt that I took all the classes that were environmental, and I didn't want to waste my time taking ceramics to get a degree in environmental science. They wanted me to take all of these classes, and I'm like, we're in a climate emergency. I would rather, I didn't want a degree so bad to take all these other classes that are like filler classes to get my degree. So that was one of the reasons why I dropped out of college. I wish there was a class where it was only stuff on environmental stuff and environmental science and not like arts and whatever else just to get my environmental science degree. It just didn't make sense to me at my community college. And with that time of taking those classes I didn't want to take, I wanted to just redirect my full attention towards activism. So, and just with what Laurent was saying, Climate Reality is a really cool platform. I see their work all over the internet. I think Al Gore may have started that training program or helped facilitate it. I know some people that I really look up to that have taken the Climate Reality training course. They are educating people around the world, both traveling and through social media. I have had a chance to sit through one of the Climate Reality discussions, and it's definitely something worth checking out and taking some of the training courses so you can continue to educate people. As far as Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers, as much as I want to try to support them for that aspect of it, I've tried. They're using so much plastic. It's ridiculous. Their plastic packaging is black plastic, which is not recyclable. We can't recycle black plastic. Our machines, our technology does not read black plastic in the sorting machines and facilities and transfer stations. It's really, really thick black plastic, and you get a couple little patties, and then it's wrapped in paper and more plastic. It's just, if they're watching, they got a lot of work to do. It's a step in the right direction, but I just don't think it's good enough. I feel so uncomfortable. I've purchased it once to try it out, but I just I felt super guilty, and I try to avoid plastic as much as I can, because that's great if we're using less water and less resources to create this meat, but why are we not using less plastic? So I think it's Beyond Burger, but maybe Impossible Burger is doing the same thing. So Sharif, I could possibly answer that question, but I think I'd have to
I understand. No problem. No problem.
Okay.
No problems from.
I'll go ahead and turn my time over to the rest of the panel.
Well, I just want to mention
Okay.
that every time I think I'm doing something good, Alex comes on and makes me feel bad about it.
sorry. No, it's just we're better. We can do so much better, like Beyond Burger.
Yes.
Come on, Beyond Burger.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Professor Donalds, yes. Professor Donalds.
So what areas of knowledge will be involved in shaping sustainable pro-ecological economic development in the 21st century? I think I've mentioned this before, which is that we actually have to learn how businesses work. We have to actually learn how innovation works. Engineers are going to build the things that we're going to need in many cases. So when you learn engineering, in order to be able to learn engineering, I know people here as young as 16 that are listening to this, they're younger. You have to bite the bullet. You have to learn calculus. You have to learn linear algebra. These are the things that you really need to be able to understand what to do to actually make things. And I disagree with Alex about the art. It's been shown that people who read good literature, that's okay. It's a very fun disagreement. I mean, I only disagree on a very light level. I just appreciate what you do so much input. So don't think it's anything about you. I just the research I've done in psychology and sociology, I've discovered that people who read good literature, things um, like War and Peace, actually. Lolita is a fantastic book. I mean, there's just books like that. They wind up having more empathy and being able to put themselves in other people's situations better. And without empathy, we're talking at people, and we can't get into those different social worlds where people have different knowledge. So if you're a businessman and you have empathy, it's been shown that business people who with the most empathy actually do the best, because they understand what's going on with the people that work for them. They understand what their customers want. They understand what motivates people. So learning business, calculus, all the things that you need to make things and understand how things are made is kind of the nuts and bolts, the technology. You're a worker, like learning carpentry. Those are the tools that you need. But every person should study psychology and sociology and understand how what we do affects other people, and just really get them, because a lot of people don't get them, because the kind of things that we need to do, it's wonderful to be able to work locally, but we have to work as a global community as well, and local, and that's very, very complicated and takes studying. So learn the nuts and bolts, but don't deprive yourself of literature and art and psychology and sociology. Just to finish it up, we've changed the name STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, to STEAM, which is Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. So that's what we're trying to encourage here in the United States. That's, I yield to
thank you,
the
sir.
next interesting person.
It's really, yes, it's really nice discussions. There are a few more questions from audience. I want to take these things, and as well as we want to go for the concluding remarks. World Talent Economy Forums, Al Noor Academy, Asia Research and Development Institutions. We are working 365 days. Well, as many of our speakers like Alex, Professor Donalds, and everybody actually helping us, our support us, and those who are the speakers, they are actually really helpful. So we have audience, as well as we are targeting youth community, because youth can change a lot. Youth can change our community. They can give us the new society. And from the COVID, we learned this time for the youth community, and we should support the youth, and they will change new ecosystems, and they will develop sustainable ecosystems. So I directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today's, as well as there are two more questions I want to text. When you give your concluding remarks, you can give analysis on that. What is the process of maintaining the genetic diversity of the populations, from Mr. Shihab, as well as Mr. Shahrukh question is that what are the important topic in the field of sustainable development of a pro-ecologically new economy? I think already they get the answer from Professor Donalds. So anyway, I want to start with our new friend, Mr. Lawrence, then Mr. Jemid, then Mr. Eric, then Mr. Alex, and finally Professor Donalds. Mr. Lawrence.
Oh, I just want to say something before. Alex Donalds mentioned climate reality. So basically, climate reality was actually founded by Al Gore. And basically what happened is that in around 2006, 2007, he started training a few people to do his presentation, the one seen in the famous movie An Inconvenient Truth. And then as time went on, he trained more and more people. And in the last summer training, there were thousands of people who were trained. But the main goal of climate reality is to spread awareness about climate change. So one of the questions before was what areas of knowledge for sustainability, I just want to add that I think that engineering is very important because one of the best things that has happened is that the price of solar panels decreased a lot over time. The price of wind turbines decreased a lot over time, and that's what's leading to the explosion in the wind power and the solar power. And it's very important that we have a lot of engineers to work on solar and wind power, as well as other forms of renewable energy, in order to drastically reduce their costs and drastically increase their efficiency. So I think engineering is very important. Your other question, I think, was I didn't really understand the question. Could you repeat it? It was about genetic diversity. Down, I'm not
Yes,
sure.
generic diversity. Yes.
When you say about
What is the
population,
process?
are you talking about like the plant population, or are you talking about what are you talking about exactly?
Genetic diversity is of a populations. I think in between the population there are different kind of diversity in terms of genetics. But I think Professor Donald, you can give the answer. I think for sustainability, genetic diversity is not part of that. But I love to learn. So no problem, no problem. Thank you. Hopefully we have more sessions this week. In Friday we have sessions on green technology. So I request all of our panelists, you can join in these sessions. Mr. Jamid.
I assume this is our concluding remarks as well as answering the questions. Okay,
Yes.
so I will gently chide Professor Donald for recommending War and Peace as a fondness for Russian literature, and I would recommend Anna Karenina because it's so much shorter. But I so much appreciate the idea of STEM becoming STEAM because art is a great solace in my life and has been a source of inspiration in my life. So yes, we all have to be multifaceted, and all of these questions that we're talking about have multifaceted answers. So these types of things are not simple questions or simple solutions to those questions, simple answers. Because when we talk about building solar panels, well, what's the cost of transporting them? Oh, we talk about the trucks, they're using fossil fuels. Okay, well, let's fix that. Our federal highway system was built for a reason, and a lot of that had to do with the companies that were making money off of its building, and the rubber companies that would produce the tires that would lead us to this car. So we became a car-loving society. Well, you can become a different type of loving society if your focus is elsewhere and for different reasons. And an important part of this is to make sure that not only are you as an individual multifaceted, but that the team that you work with is multifaceted. Because yes, an engineer can have a great idea and have no idea how to market it, have no idea how to build a company. And there can be a person who has a great idea of how to build a startup, but doesn't have the technological background to make these changes that necessarily have to be made, because this is a call to action now. It's almost too late, but it's not too late if we act now. But it takes, I won't say it takes a village, but it takes multifaceted corporations, startups, all these things. And we have to incent business. We have to accept that business is going to be motivated by profit making. So let's make it profitable for them to invest in these companies. Let's make it profitable for them to, I live in the heart of Silicon Valley. Venture capitalists are a dime a dozen around here, and they are not interested in these speculative. They want to see, do you have a return on my investment? And so we have to build that into that. And so we have to have somebody on our team that is cognizant of that, is aware that a return on investment has to be demonstrated to get these venture capitalists to invest in their startup firms. So this is not a simple question that we're facing right now. This is not a simple problem that we're trying to answer. And it takes many people coming together and working together with their individual skill set. And hopefully the individual skill set is multifaceted as possible. They can bring much, but you cannot do this alone, in my opinion. This is a team effort. And it starts with the individual, it starts with the community, and then it expands outward. And we can change our society, we can change our motivation. We do not have to be motivated simply by the dollar bill anymore. We could be motivated by the world that we live in, other cultures, and I'll talk about a little bit about the diversity question. Yes, we have to be able to have exposure to other cultures. We have to be able to, it used to be against the law in states, in the United States, to marry interracially. Now, seems like an absurd thing to us now, but it was the law of the land. So we must continue to evolve and grow as a species. So that we must always think about growing and evolving, and in an inclusive way. So we want to be welcoming and not isolating, because America first is America alone, and we do not want to be alone. Thank you.
Thank you. My friend, Mr. Alex, what's your
Yes,
concluding today? Yeah.
that was wonderful, James. Yeah, thank you for that contribution. That wonderful closing remark. So yeah, I just want to say that we're in a global crisis. This is a global crisis of unimaginable consequences. I mean, not only do we have just a pollution crisis, which is obvious and apparent, even though there's still a large volume of people that don't even believe it's happening. Yeah, we're in a climate crisis, and we're seeing ecological collapse in different places around the world. So to solve this, it's just going to take all of us working together, just having these conversations, sharing information, working towards solutions. That's what we have to do. I mean, morally, that's what we have to do. So I have been on this for about 2 decades now, doing environmental activism, trying to work on as many projects as possible, doing everything that I can every day, trying to balance my time in between reaching new people as well as lowering my individual carbon footprint. A lot of people ask what I was personally doing, and eventually, after having so much criticism that I wasn't 100% vegan, or I'd fly to some other country to help during the humanitarian crisis, I actually spent 3 or 4 hours, and I made a list of several hundred things that I've done over the last few decades, projects, lifestyle choices, ways that I voted with my money. And we need more people to know some of the simple things they can do. I mean, there's so many simple things. One of the simplest thing that you can do, let's say that you're walking up to a crosswalk, and if you stand at the crosswalk, the cars are going to stop. But if you wait back and you see a big blank section of cars, if cars don't come to a complete stop, collectively you might you have the power, by choosing to stay back away from the crosswalk 10 or 20 feet, that would potentially avoid 10 or 15 cars from stopping. So it's just all these little things that I try to incorporate into my life, all these little things that I try to do just to have an impact around me, because it's not just recycling. It's not just the solar panels, the electric car, or being vegan. There's so many things that we can do throughout our life in ways that we can change our lifestyle. And again, we're all in this together. So we have to continue to work together. Unfortunately, the divide in America and the misinformation really set us back. Trump and the Trump administration pulling us out of the Paris Climate Agreement has really set us back. Thankfully, the Biden administration, like I heard in this conversation, is likely to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. And even if it's not that, he at least believes in climate change. He's not going around telling people it's a hoax, which slows down, again, our potential progress. So one of the questions asked where they can get an education when it comes to whatever, it's just like, it's everything. We need to change everything. So yeah, healthcare, education, we just mentioned engineering. Eric's working on agriculture, transportation, the products we buy, the energy we need, and just how we spend our time. is all important. So instead of going to a big arena and watching sports with, I don't know, technology and lights, maybe just incorporating more parks in our communities, like I saw throughout Scandinavia. So there's a lot of ways that we can change, and we all need to just be working towards solutions, because we have too much at risk and too much to lose, and so many innocent people and sentient beings on this planet are depending on us to take the individual initiative. So
Thank you. Mr. Eric, Eric, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Yeah, I think my concluding remarks for today would just be that I think at the core of a lot of the issues that we're facing is this mindset of consumerism and just, constant consumption and constantly buying and looking outside for the resources that we need in order to thrive. And I would say try to go as direct to the source as you can. So, be as conscious of a consumer as you can, but really in order to turn the corner and make the level of change that we need to see in the world, we're going to have to take it beyond that and move into producerism or getting into the production itself. Even if you're in an apartment, you can have a little potted garden on your balcony or in your windows and put some fresh herbs into your food. And remember that our lives are fundamentally dependent on plants. From the first breath that we breathe until our bodies end up in the compost pile, every step of the way, our lives are utterly dependent on plants. So deepen your relationship with plants, connect with them in a way that makes that relationship more intimate, and teach, spread the word to absolutely anybody who's willing to listen. Because if we can even just make a point of reaching 10 people each year and bringing them into this mindset of sustainability, direct connection with the plants, direct relationship with our farmers and with our habitats, and getting into foraging and looking for invasive plant species within your habitat to bring into your diet and enliven your body and open up your mind and connect with nature, that is really what's going to get us the exponential growth that we need. So my motto is each one teach 10. And it doesn't matter if you only know one thing. If there are 10 people around you who don't know that thing, please preach it, please speak it, share it, and get everybody activated and excited about this movement, because it's time. It's go time. We can do this.
Nice. We would also waste less food. We would waste a lot less food with all of this knowledge. Growing your food and your like, if you had one little plant like on your balcony, like you said, you would know what was involved in growing that, and we would waste less food and all lower our carbon footprint as well.
Thank you. We have another session like after 4 minutes. So I directly request Professor Donald for the concluding remarks for today. We have sessions tomorrow on healthcare system. Those who are interested, they can join in our healthcare related topics, and they can contribute, as well as Friday we have sessions on green technology. And I want to give special thanks Mr. Lauren, Mr. James, Mr. Eric, Professor Donald, and our energetic friends, Mr. Alex. He's really contributing a lot for World Talent Economy Forums, and he's trying to invite many of the friends. And we really want to recognize all of our speaker contributions. And this April we have a big conference, and we are inviting 200 different speakers from around the world, and definitely based on the contributions, we will provide award those who contributing for World Talent Economy Forums. So Professor Donald, I want your concluding remarks because please unmute yourself.
Nope.
There we go. I know I don't have much time, but I want to say that I just want to mention something James said. There's a fabulous professor at the Stanford Business School who is an emeritus professor in 5 things. He wrote the first book on organizations with Herbert Simon, and his name is Jim March. And I got to know, if you read business books, you'll always see him in the footnotes. And I got to know him, and he teaches a class at Stanford Business School, and the 3 texts are War and Peace, Crime and Punishment, and Don Quixote. And he says you can learn everything you need to know about leadership from Don Quixote, everything you need to know about ethics from Crime and Punishment, and everything you need to know about strategy from War and Peace. And so,
Okay.
when I've seen hundreds of pitches, and one of the things that we look for is exactly what James said, is teams, because no one person can do it. Now, how do you get to be a team? I mean, if people can be collaborative and work together with other people, we have a much higher degree of success, which is why I emphasize reading literature, learning about psychology and sociology. I want to mention that diversity, as I mentioned it earlier, and diversity is what makes things strong. And that's where creativity and health and everything comes from. I put a link of something I wrote about that in there. And finally, I want to say that I don't know quite how to do it. It's being done in some of the Nordic countries, or it's being attempted. But if somebody invests into a company, it's only fair that there's some metric to decide whether the company's being successful or not. And in the 30s, around the 20th century, the metric became money. And so the only way that people can judge whether a company is doing well or not is whether it's making a profit. So we need to be able to find other ways of measuring what companies are doing, and companies a way of value, and that is being worked on. So I would suggest that besides the other things that I mentioned, you're going to learn calculus as an engineer anyway. Take that calculus knowledge and learn economics as well, and learn what's going on, because that will give you perspective, and you will be able to have the ability to change the metrics we use for success in organizations. Okay.
Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for all of your contributions. So hopefully this week we have more excitement and more different topics, and we're going to discuss, and everybody, I'm sure they will enjoy to contribute in World Talent Economy Forums. We are very much open for any kind of good idea, good plan, good strategy. We are very much open for all of the people, those who want to contribute for climate change, contribute for SDG, contribute for fourth industrial revolutions. So any of the good idea or anything, you can directly communicate with World Talent Economy Forums. We will do our best. Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. Thank you.